Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Egan, and on this week's episode, I'm joined by Teagasc Specialist Aidan Murray in the second part of a two-part series on planning in preparation for weaning. On the first episode, Charles Chavat discussed how to prevent pneumonia. On this episode, Aidan advises on how to reduce stress at weaning. I first asked Aidan, what age is the best time to wean?
I suppose, Catherine, realistically, you would like to wean from about 6 months of age on. And part of the reason for that is that, a calf at 6 months of age should be fairly well grown, should be eating a bit of grass and roughage, and hopefully it'll have given you a bit of time. Weaning really before that, some people may be forced to do it, but like your cow is only working for half the year then, if you're weaning any earlier than that. So realistically, lots of calves sort of that 6 to 9 months of age would typically be the age at which people would be looking to wean at.
And when should weaning take place?
Well, I think that's a decision, given the fact that if the calves are 6 months old, we can take it that, look, it'll depend on the setup of your individual farm. Some farms are able to graze later than others. Weather conditions at the back end of the year, sometimes, it gets very poor conditions in September, October, and lads are forced into weaning earlier. Some people like to wean and keep the stock out. Other people like to wean once they bring the cows and the calves in. So really, it's a decision for every individual farmer. I suppose the key thing about it is that you try and do it in a methodical way, where you're reducing the stress on both the cow and the calf, and trying to create the least amount of check in the performance of the animal.
You mentioned there, Aidan, it really is different for every farm. Can you describe the different type of weaning strategies that are on farms?
Yeah, well, I suppose going for the strategy that's probably most stressful on calves would be an abrupt weaning strategy, whereby basically the cow and calf are separated, maybe inside, and the calf doesn't get to see or suckle the cow again, and that would be a sort of an abrupt weaning, and in some circumstances that has to be carried out. If you take it, what happens in the likes of Teagasc Grange, they will start to wean the calves by keeping the cow and calves in a group, and maybe take away 5 or 10 cows out of that group, leave the calves along with the other cows and calves that remain, and do that over a period of a week or so, until all the cows are gone out of the group. The calves are familiar with their grazing area that they've been in, and it's less stressful on those calves. Then you look at the herd in Newford and Athenry. They have a different approach. Their calves will be born in sort of February, March time. They will look to wean typically in sort of early mid-September, and the idea there is that they will take the cows and calves inside. They'll pen the cows and calves in adjacent pens, but the calves are not allowed suckle. The calves are given good quality silage and concentrate, and the cows will be put on straw with a view to trying to get them to dry up. And then after 36 hours, they'll let the two mix again to let the calf have a final suck. The cows remain inside on the straw. The calves are moved to a straw-bedded shed and will be given again silage and concentrates, held in there for about a week, and then the calves are let back out to grass again, and the cows can go back out to graze. And that has the advantage in that you can tighten up the cows, so there's a less of a grass demand on the cows at that time of year. And you can give the weanlings really choice grass, and maybe potentially keep them out longer and minimize the stress on them by having them housed rather than having to house them too early. So that's another. Other farms, last year, for example, I came across a farm that they kept the cows and the calves together, and they used what they call weaning paddles, which is just like the nose tongs that you use for restraining cattle. They're a little plastic paddle that slips into the nose of the calf. It allows the calf to run with the cow, but won't allow the calf to suckle. So the calf is with the cow all the time outside, and it allows the the calf is weaned over the space of a week or 10 days from the cow. Less stress on the cow, less stress on the calf, and the fact that you're keeping them outside, you're not worried about ventilation or sheds being too stuffy or too clammy at that time of year. So look, there's any given number of ways that you could potentially wean. The likes of Grange is methods tried and tested and works well for them. Newford have been doing the method that suits their farm, again works well. And again, the likes of paddles or encouraging calves to forward creep graze if you've got your farm set up, and then eventually shutting the gates between the cows and the calves while they're still outside. As I say, they're all various methods. They all have the same consequence at the end. But they're all planned for, and they're done in a specific in a specific way, and the work. And again, the target is all about trying to reduce the weanling, the stress on that weanling and on the cow.
Most definitely, Aidan. You mentioned there that the feeding of concentrates as part of the Beef Environmental Efficiency Programme for Sucklers, also known as the BEEP scheme. If farmers have selected the meal feeding option, how would they carry out this action?
Well, basically, what you're signing up there for is to feed the calf for the 4 weeks, concentrate for 4 weeks in advance of weaning, and then for the 2 weeks afterwards. So you're introducing the calf through either forward creep grazing and troughs on the other side, or through creep feeders or whatever way that works for you, to 1 to 2 kilos of concentrate in that 4 weeks before you intend to wean. You wean with whichever method you suits, and then you continue to feed that calf for at least 2 weeks after the cow has been taken away. Again, it's a method of getting calves used to concentrate, getting them used to the fact that they'll no longer have a supply of milk, and again, reduce the stress at weaning time, which, as Charles would have said last week, triggers potential health problems, and trying to minimize any potential issues there. So, from a farmer's perspective, the queries that I'm getting would be farmer plans to sell cull suckler cows. You have to have your dates lined up, because if you happen to be inspected for BPS, you'll have to show that you had concentrate on hand, purchase dockets for meals or whatever, in the month before the weaning date, and that the cow is actually still on the farm for at least that month. Once you start to meal feed, once you wean, you can sell the cow anytime. But it's just to make sure that you're compliant with the dates. That's the important thing, because it is the one action, along with missing out on vaccination. If you don't carry it out rightly or correctly, you will be penalised.
That's great, Aidan. And I suppose for farmers that are selling weanlings, is there an advantage in feeding meal this year, particularly with current prices?
That's a very simple one, Catherine. Never in an animal's lifetime is it more efficient than it is in that sort of 0 to 1 age category, which your weanling will be. Generally, you have a conversion rate of 4 to 5 kilos of concentrate for every kilo of live weight. That in a 1 to 2 year old bullock, for example, would probably drop to somewhere around 1 in 8, 1 in 10. So look, if you take it, concentrate prices have gone up, probably anything from 40 to 60 euros a tonne this year. So if you were feeding even a ration at 300 euros a tonne at the moment, 4 kilos of that would be 120. What are you getting for your kilo of live weight for a good quality weanling? Probably somewhere in the region of 230, 240, 250, 260, up to 3 euros a kilo. So if it's not efficient and cost effective to feed a bit of meal at that stage of the animal's lifetime, it'll never be efficient. And even at current meal prices, it's still something that's worth looking at. If you've got calves that have good shapes and have the potential to grow on, that 1, 2, or 3 kilos of concentrate after weaning and before weaning to keep them moving on, to stop the check in performance, will put a real bloom on them. The one area that you might want to look out for is you don't want to be overfeeding heifer weanlings, because a lot of heifer weanlings will probably get away in 1.5 kilos of concentrate, because they will lay down fat quicker. And if you're going to the mart, the last thing you want to be presenting is heifers that are over fat, because they're not as good a prospect for the man or the individual that's going to looking to buy them and bring them forward. So certainly, if there's potential in your calves, that bit of extra feeding at this from the autumn will help drive them on. But just be careful that you don't overfeed heifers and leave them over fat.
That's great, Aidan. And I suppose depending on the farmer system, some farmers maybe consider castrating bull weanlings, and this can add stress at weaning. When is the best time to castrate bull calves?
Yeah, well, look, the research is very clear on it. You're looking at research and you're looking at legislation with regards to castration. The current legislation says that you can castrate up to 8 days of age with a rubber ring, and you can use a Burdizzo up to 6 months of age without a local anaesthetic. Once you go over 6 months of age, if you're using a local anaesthetic, that has to be given by the vet. So once you go over 6 months, the vet's supposed to be involved there. The research would basically, from the Grange point of view, there was work carried out, and basically the simple rule is that the earlier it's done, the easier it is on the animal and the easier it is on the individual that's doing it. Like, work that was carried out showed there was no advantage in delaying castration up to 17 months in some cases, which would be an extreme, on carcass weight. And we would have seen it at farm level. Calves that were castrated at 5 months of age still had the same carcass weight at 2 years of age as animals that were castrated at 11 or 12 months. The difference being there was a much bigger setback to the animal that was castrated at 11 or 12 months than the animal that was castrated at 4 or 5. Like, typically in Grange and in Newford, they will look to castrate the calves in that sort of July, August period, when the calves are in around the 5 months of age, and they still go on to achieve very good carcass weights at 24 months. So it's there is some merit in giving pain relief at castration, which some farmers will do. The other thing, if you're castrating with a bander, and some individuals, you just need to make sure that you have the animals covered for tetanus, so they'll need a clostridial vaccine. But that tends to be with much older, much stronger animals. Your typical spring-born weanling, if they're castrated with a Burdizzo before 6 months of age, you shouldn't see any setback in terms of their overall long-term performance. The other point, I suppose, Catherine, that we would need to mention with regard to weaning and minimizing disease and stress is, make sure that the calves, apart from your castration, which you'll be looking to carry out at least a month before you plan to wean, make sure that the calves, particularly this summer where we're going through a hot spell of weather, lungworm may be delayed, and we want to make sure that once the rain comes, that we have them treated, that they're actually clear, and that they're not carrying a lungworm burden or a stomach worm burden at the time of weaning as well. So there's a number of boxes. Charles would have went through stuff in terms of things that have to be correct. You need to time your castration correct. Don't have it too close to weaning. Make sure the calves are well dosed. And the other thing that's an issue around weaning time and shouldn't be overlooked, particularly if cows are going to be housed inside, is you need to be on the ball, because that week after weaning time, cows that are in particular, unless you're keeping the sheds very, very clean, those cows can be prone to environmental mastitis, which can cause loss of quarter if the cows get very sick. Cows going down, or maybe loss of a pregnancy and that individual animal. So you need to be careful and set it out, plan when you're going to do these tasks, when you're going to wean, how you're going to wean, and if you're working to a plan, you're going to minimize the stress on yourself and minimize the stress on the animal.
Thanks, Aidan. A great insight on planning and preparation for weaning, and particularly how to reduce the stress at weaning.
Thanks very much.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Aidan for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.